Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. With over 20 years of real estate experience and selling over 150 homes a year, Laura Sanders is the #1 RE/MAX agent in the state of Florida for 2021. Join us each week as we discuss how to make money through buying and flipping homes to renting versus selling and everything in between. To join the conversation, call in live 888-994-4995, Studio A.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Thank you for listening to me every week on Thursday nights. Well, if we ever play this as a repeat, I hope it's on a Thursday night. Tonight we're going to talk about what you should do before you die. I know that sounds kind of morbid, but you know, what do you do before you die? What do you do with your real estate? What do you do with your money? Like, people don't think about this. What do you do before your parents die? You never want to think about your mom or dad dying, but you know what? They're gonna die. Hopefully you don't die before them, but it could happen. So what do you do? I've got Dawn and Freddie here, and we're gonna talk about what do you do before you die?
I was gonna ask you, reverse mortgages, if you have no one to leave your property to, good idea or bad idea?
It depends. So I know of a woman that lived to 103, and she bought the property in Tamarack 50 years ago and paid $103,000. I was like, that's a lot of money, 103 in Tamarack, right? In a condo, it was a 3-bedroom condo. Son came in with the statement, right? And the statement she owed $450,000. Now, in her case, it worked out very well because she lived till 103. So they made money on that. That was a great idea for her, right? I have another friend from high school. His father had passed away. The worst part was it happened right before COVID, so before the prices exploded. And believe it or not, he had a reverse mortgage. And when they were like, oh, it's a reverse mortgage, we're just gonna let it go, I said, no, let me see your statement. So they gave me the statement. I looked at it. I saw what the balance due was. I did a market analysis, and I said, there's about $130,000 for you 3 kids to split. So, and imagine if everybody wasn't in such disarray when COVID hit. Everybody was like, oh my God, like nobody's gonna buy real estate, nobody's gonna do anything. And as you know, if we just waited 5 more months, they would have probably gotten 200 more thousand. But wow. There was actually equity. So I think when it comes to the reverse mortgage, I think that's a very person by person kind of thing. Like, you know, it depends, right? I have a friend who his mom's in one right now too, and it's been the best thing for her.
So how does it work? You have your mortgage, the bank comes in, they give you a second mortgage, or they now own the house, but when you go to sell the house, the bank has the first right of the monies, and then you keep the rest?
So the way that a reverse mortgage works is this. There's a couple different ways. First, if you want to go buy a house today, right? And you're over the age, you know, to buy one with a reverse mortgage, they want you typically to put down 50%, okay? So let's say you buy a $400,000 house and you put 50% down. By the way, you can't do a reverse mortgage on condos. That's just the thing. But if you put 50% down on like a townhouse or a villa that's run by an HOA, they would actually now give you they would be financing, and so that's where it's building onto that other 50% of the value, right? So you're still responsible to pay the taxes, and you're still responsible to pay the insurance. So if you don't pay the taxes and insurance, they're gonna come after you and take it back.
Well, how do you come up with 50%? That's a lot of money down on a house.
Well, let's just say though, let's say you already live in your house, right? They're gonna do a mortgage, they're gonna do an appraisal. So let's say your house is worth $800,000. And this happens where a lot of people, like, they can't really afford the $800,000 because think about it, you're in an $800,000 house, your electric bill is probably like $600,000. I mean, feels like it, $600 a month, right? It's expensive. It kind of went up recently, like just out of nowhere. So you're paying all these bills, and it's a lot because, you know, you don't have any cash flow because it's all in your house, right? So with that being said, right, you're taking out 50%. So usually most people by a certain time have their house paid for. So they take $400,000 out of the house. So they give them back cash of $400,000.
They're giving you the cash. You're not giving them the cash.
You are if you're buying it originally with
Okay.
so if it's already your house, you already own your house. That's why I was saying there's different ways to
Different ways
explain
to do
this,
it.
right? There's ways where people go out to buy houses, right? And then there's ways that you already own your house and you don't want to leave your house. You want to, like, there's some people that are like, I want to die in my house. Like, I don't want to ever leave my house. So those people are the ones that are going to get back cash from the bank so they can throw their $400,000 in. So hopefully they don't live to 103 and they're going to pay their taxes and insurance off of that $400,000. And it kind of gives them a little more room to like go on vacations and do things. So that is, you know, when it comes to that.
And if we don't have a reverse mortgage and you're just trying to get your house prepared, I guess your will, your estates, your
Yeah,
parents
so-
as well, what are we looking to do?
So some of the easier things to do is number one, put in trust, in trust for. So if you have a bank account, right, then you would want to put in trust for, like if you were my dad, you would say in trust for Laura Sanders, right?
The house.
Right, so if you pass away, then the money would come to me. It wouldn't have to go through probate. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm only telling you basic stuff, like just basic stuff. And this is why I always tell my friends, I'm like, hey, call an attorney, an estate attorney, so that you make sure that all these things are set up right. Just like if you own more than one house, right, that becomes a little bit trickier when it comes down to how to avoid probate. So every state's different, but in the state of Florida, we have something called a ladybird deed. And the ladybird deed is pretty awesome because, listen, some people have kids that are just not trustworthy, could be on drugs, but they want to leave them something, right? But you don't want to put them on your deed now when they can become in control of your house, right? So you would then put them under a ladybird deed, which makes them have no authority. So if you want to sell that house anytime, you can. But let's just say you get in a car accident and you die, right? You never expect to die. I just had a friend die on Friday at 62. I don't think he expected to die. Right. I mean, it was totally out of the blue. Like he was always talking about retirement and putting money in places and doing things, right? So, and that's another thing, talking about people that own businesses and what you should be doing. So this is just the basic, just very, very basic things I'm talking about, but they're things that people really need to think about and plan for.
What does the ladybird deed do?
So the ladybird deed allows you to get the property upon death, and it avoids probate.
And is that different than putting it in? Freddie put it in a trust for you as his
right,
child.
That's different. Well, because remember now, and now again, I'm not a lawyer, but that's where it gets all kind of tricky, right? So you start putting properties in the trust, and then you put somebody who's the trustee, but sometimes you still have to go through probate. And then that's when, based upon how much, in some states, based on how much money you have to pay a certain percentage to the lawyers. I mean, I don't want to give any extra money to you.
Okay. Sure.
Right.
Does that have to do because there was no will in play?
Not always.
And
There
so,
can
in
still
other
be a
words, if
will.
there's no will, and you, car accident, God forbid, you die, does this lady?
Yeah, it goes right to the person that you put it under, and you wouldn't need a will. That's why the bank account's in trust for, even as little as putting somebody as a signer on your safe deposit box.
They would get that too.
Yeah, so like
Businesses
my mom and
too?
I have already,
Equity, businesses.
so the business, that's a whole nother thing, right? So a friend of mine that just died is an attorney. So he needed to have, you have to have it where your business goes for 1 year to another attorney. You have to leave it. It's like you have to leave your business to somebody that's agreed that they're going to take care of your business for 1 year upon your death. So imagine, like, he was an accident attorney. So you're in the middle of an accident injury case. Like, what happens then?
Happens to your cases.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it was sudden, he didn't know. Now I know of a case where someone he knew, he was given a terminal diagnosis, and he asked another similar company,
right.
upon my death, will you please take over?
But you
all
had
of my
time to
claims?"
plan.
He had time to plan, right? This friend of yours
Just either had a heart
unfortunately-
attack and died or what have you at 62. So he wasn't, trust me, he wasn't anytime soon thinking he was going anywhere. And things just happen sooner than we ever think. So you have to plan. And I know that it's a morbid conversation and people don't want to have it.
Right.
But my sister died at 39. So, that's a whole nother thing, like how that happens, My aunt passed away from COVID during that first April of COVID. And, she had no children. So I was one of her heirs and she worked for the government. So it was a whole process that we had to go through. And like my friend, he didn't have any plans to be buried, right? So these are the things that you want to start to take care of. You're talking about, I say, what do I do before I die, right? What should you do? You need to have a plan in place. Just like talking about long-term health care. I don't think you want to wipe your husband's butt when he gets sick and old.
Actually, when he turned 50, we took out, right before he was 50, we took out long-term health care for him and for me. So at the time, it was very affordable. And it goes up incrementally. I know there's different plans now because that was a long time ago. But there's different plans, there's different ways of investing that it's not necessary for long-term care, but there's annuities and different plans. So you're bucketing the money, but then you can take it out as you want to do it.
So some people are against whole life policies, and people are against and it's okay, yeah, maybe you could put your money in a mutual fund that will be able to use, just like they talk about 403Bs and this and that for for kids and going to school. But in the long run, if you don't plan, especially before you die, having a plan in place, listen, if you want to go out in a pine box, that's fine, or you want to be cremated, that's up to you. But I think it's only fair to your family that you have a plan in place, and going through the probate is pretty taxing. And those people that don't know, right, about when you inherit a property. So when we come back, we'll go to commercial. When we come back, let's talk about when you inherit a property. What do we do with that, right? So those people don't want to get stuck with all the fees. So let's tell people, what do you do when you inherit a property? We'll be right back after we check out our sponsors.
Whether you're buying, selling, refinancing, or building your dream home, you have a lot riding on your loan specialist. Max Fish, a top 1% mortgage loan officer in the nation, will give you a same-day qualifying quote. Max Fish is committed to providing his customers with mortgage services that exceed their expectations, ensuring that you make the right choice for you and your family is his ultimate goal. Contact Max Fish today at 954-729-6933 or max.fisch@nwmcorp.net.
At JK Closing Attorneys, we do all of the same things that a title company does, but with the benefits of being a law office. We can help with residential real estate, short sales, commercial real estate, refinances, 1031 exchanges, and FRIPTA withholding.
Contact JK Closing Attorneys today at 954-332-3111. Again, that is 954-332-3111.
You have been watching Making Money with Laura. For more information, contact Laura Sanders at 954-650-0827 or visit her website at theloracell.com. And now back to the show.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Today we're talking about what to do before you die. What do I do? And some of the things that we're talking about is, number one, get your name on their bank accounts in trust for. If you're married, it should automatically go to you, but don't plan that it will. For your mom and your dad, make sure that they have it in one of the kids' names. Be on their account. Make sure you're on as a signer on their safe deposit box. Make sure that you have all these things set up so they don't have to go through probate. One of the worst things would be is once somebody dies, their accounts kind of they get cut off, right? They get stopped. So the money's kind of stuck in limbo. So the biggest concern is that you inherit their property. They're in a condo. The fees are $1,000 a month. You don't have $1,000 a month. What do you do?
And then I hear there's something called a TOD, which I guess means at time of death, that the monies are not frozen, that the other person on the account can't access them, like if you are on your parents' account.
Right.
At the time of death, so they don't freeze it. So there's immediate funds to access, and again, I don't know, this is what I've been told. You can access to pay your bills, to do everything that needs to be done until the will money comes through, until things get ironed out until the house is sold, but at least there's money for the spouse even to pay their bills so the accounts are not frozen.
Well, a spouse is a spouse, right? So, and again, I'm not an attorney, I'm just kind of giving you basics. But when it comes down to kids paying bills, don't be too sure that that's what's going to happen. Like, sometimes if you don't notify the bank, it should continue to automatic debit if it's coming out. But what happens when it's not? Most people are not, they're not aware whether or not they can sell the property before it's finished through probate. And you can sell the property. You just have to get the court's permission, which is if you get the right lawyer, because they're not all good. I had one lady tell a client it's going to take 6 months to a year. I said, call my guy. I think it's going to be a month. It was 3 weeks. And you have to know the difference between whether or not you need to really file probate or you need to file a summary judgment. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but these are just basic things. And I think that what I'm trying to say is that everybody needs to make sure that you have life estate planning. It's super important. You need to know what happens when you inherit that property from your family, what you need to do with it, what your liabilities are, just like, you let insurance go and somebody drowns in the pool. Like, you got to think about these things. So that's why I always say it's better to get rid of the property sooner than later.
And what do you think about people who own their house outright? Then you don't need to have insurance anymore, right? Because the mortgage company doesn't require insurance if there's no mortgage.
Right.
So it makes me think of it because that's what you're talking about, right? So there's no insurance on your house because you own it outright. Heaven forbid there's
should
a
have
tragedy.
liability.
What do you do? What do you recommend as a real estate agent? You've got a client that comes in and buys your house out cash.
Well, I don't recommend
100%.
anything because I don't want to be liable if I told them to only get liability, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you have to protect against damage too, no? And you live in
Well,
Florida.
liability would be like if they had a fire or something, but they don't need to have hurricane wind. I mean, that's kind of expensive, hurricane and wind. And I guess you need to know your house, right? If your parents have owned the house for like 30 years and it's been through a couple of hurricanes, like Andrew and, well, that's even more than 30 years now.
I know.
But if it's fared through some of these, Wilma, Hurricane Andrew, and you know like what the damage was during those times, that's something you have to determine to take that risk. That's where, like, for me, like, I was having a conversation with somebody today saying it frustrated me so bad about insurance because I don't think that the insurance company should have the right to say that in 10 years of your life of the roof that you need a new roof, because I have buyers come into open houses and say, oh, it's 15 years, 10 years you need a new roof. I'm like, what? So I think the roof should have, like a tile roof should have a 50-year life. If it's 10 years old, you still get, 80% of the value of a house back, right? If it's 20 years old, you get 60%. If it's 30 years old, you get 40%. And if it's 50 years old, you're on your own, get your own roof.
God bless your house if your 50-year-old roof is still good. That's
But
amazing.
I saw them all the time in Fort Lauderdale,
And the
back
roofs
when
are
I
still-
first got into the business.
It's because roofs are probably put on differently then. All of the
Probably.
different strapping and things, I guess you still need hurricane code. But the insurance is really interesting because someone in my neighbor was talking about self-insuring. I
Right.
didn't even realize that was even such a thing. They can put your own monies away and self-insure your house should you need it. It's like investing in yourself. Have you
Well,
heard of this
that's
before?
Self-insuring is when you own multiple properties and you're putting money in an account yourself, and if God forbid something happens, but I mean,
I had never heard of it before, and they said, well, think about it. And they were doing the dollars and cents of what you pay your
right, but
homeowner's
they're just putting
insurance.
their own money in an account, right?
But I guess instead of giving your homeowners what
Right.
$1,000, $2,000 a month,
Right.
you give it to yourself at the end. But still, that
Right,
wouldn't
and if you get
cover
3 years, but if you get
catastrophe.
3 years, but what happens if this year is the year that the hurricane
Right.
comes, right?
And with people, I mean, how many times are you going to have excess cash to do that? Something happens, that's where you're going to go to get it fixed. So, it
Well,
could be
you
a
got to
good
get them to
plan
fix it. The problem is they're getting very strict,
on
right?
how to fix
So
it.
water coverage is becoming nil, right? But I think we digress from what do we do when we die, but yeah, I mean, insurance is a whole nother thing, right? About talking about self-insurance, and that's something with Brandon that we should definitely talk about.
Maybe you'll bring
but-
on a wills and you had a wills and estate
I
attorney on
did,
last
and let
year.
me tell you, you learn so much from them. Like, just like you learn from the attorney when you talk about should I blow or should I not blow?
I heard about that.
Yeah. That was a really good one.
That was great.
A lot of people like to watch, but should you blow or should you not blow?
Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders Show.
Yeah, like, listen, if you can't have a good sense of humor, I mean, you might as well just go home.
You know, and divorce also, I guess people have the prenups and all the things that they put in place.
That might just cause you to die.
That may kill you quicker.
But
Yeah.
the things that you need to put in place, and you have to talk to your attorney and your investment broker and everyone that's
should.
involved in your team to
Yeah.
understand where the different money buckets
You should
are.
be getting with your financial advisor to talk about what do you do if you do die, right? You should be getting with an attorney, an estates, wills, and trust attorney to talk about what do you do prior to dying, right? Like, what should I have? Like, I have a trust, right? Not everybody needs a trust. If you own, and this is my opinion, right? But again, I'm not a lawyer. If you own one property and one bank account, put the property in a ladybird deed for whoever you want to leave it to, and put the property, the account in trust for. I mean, why would you spend all that money, right? If you're simple, be simple. If you're complex, be prepared.
Talk to your
Because
financial
not only
advisor.
are you leaving money out there to collect additional fees to get it sorted out, you're leaving a headache for the loved ones behind.
Well, you see what happened when your parents passed away.
I'm still living that. But that's a different scenario because that's in Puerto Rico, but same problem.
But same type of situation. They didn't put in place the things for you and your
Absolutely.
sister.
Absolutely. It's
And
become a
then-
nightmare.
And then your nephew, who's the third party, he passed
died,
away. And then,
Now it goes to his wife and his children. So you got to deal with more personalities to get things done. That's why you should plan. Exactly what you're saying, Laura. You should, not that something's going to happen, God forbid, tomorrow, but you should plan because you never know what can happen.
Well, years ago, many years ago, I got my life insurance license. And I was dabbling in life insurance. And, you know, I'm that salesperson. I was going up to everybody I know and I was like, you should buy life insurance. And you have to remember, at the time, I was like 21 years old, right? So people were looking at me like, why? And so they're like, if I know them, they're probably 24 and they seemed old as hell to me, right? Like, isn't that kind of funny? You look at a 24, 25-year-old and you're like, oh my God, you're old, right? So I would ask them and they would all look at me like, I'm not wasting my money on that. And there was a friend of mine, and I guess I was about 29 at the time. No, I was about 27. I was 27 at the time, and a friend of mine ended up getting hit by a motorcycle and died. Now, he was married and had 2 or 3 children. So I had asked him a month prior to this, why don't you buy life insurance from me? And he laughed at me. And I literally said to my husband at the time, I said, can you believe he laughed at me? And look at what happened. You don't know what tomorrow holds.
Sure.
You know? A lot of people are texting and driving. We have more obstacles on the road now than we did when I was 27.
because people aren't paying attention.
Right. He got hit by a motorcycle walking across the street at nighttime. Okay? So to me, it's like there was no texting from the motorcycle guy, right? It was dark out. He walked across and got hit. So I just think that we need to plan. So that went pretty quick tonight.
It always does.
So everybody, if you're thinking about dying, which you're going to, and this is so morbid, oh my God, did not come out right.
Well, what happened to your friend, I think, really impacted you.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about needing a lawyer and need some suggestions, definitely give me a call, Laura Sanders, 954-650-0827. I would love to help you out to get you connected to the right wills, trusts, and probate attorney. And if you're thinking about buying or selling, or you have any questions because you inherited a house and don't know what to do with it, give me a call too. You might even be the right candidate to get the 0% financing to get that home in the best shape possible. Check my website out, www.laurasell.com. My number is 954-650-0827. And thanks for listening tonight, and look forward to talking with you again next week. Have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in for Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. To join the conversation, call us at the studio, 888-994-4995 Studio A, or contact Laura directly at 954-650-0827. Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. We look forward to seeing you next week.